Charmed life therapy, powerfully and subconsciously changing your life.
Currency seems to be anger. It feels like an act of defiance to commune and celebrate all the good that is alive in the world. And the many here tonight who either challenge the systems and/or who show us that magic exists in Earth in their gifts, talents, bravery, art, and life. So tonight I applaud each of you.
Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy, back with a little update. And I must admit, I'm struggling to make an update today. I've just shown you at the beginning that little video, pinched it off without a crystal ball, so props to her for that. But I think this is what I'm finding hard today, is that yesterday I was doing like a workshop or seminar for people that are part of a women's aid group that is about DV and other forms of abuse and harassment. And so I got to look at a room full of women who have really been through traumas. And it kind of really highlights kind of the sheer stupidity in all of this that we're watching and engaging with here. And I think that's what I am finding hard, partly because you've got Blake Lively there on that video claiming to be standing up on behalf of women and girls and all of the rest of it, and this is what victimhood looks like. And then you go and meet real victims and listen to them and the impact on their health and the fact that they're still going through things and still dealing with court cases and still have negative interactions every day and such. And also, it's very hard to talk about something which is so ridiculous and shouldn't actually be happening, which shouldn't have come to anything, when you've got the likes of what happened the other day on the train to the Ukrainian immigrant Irina Zaruska. When out of the blue she was attacked and killed by a man on the subway, a man that, you know, quite possibly should have been under protections himself, should have been in some kind of facility somewhere in order to get some help. He was out loose to do anything and everything that his mind was telling him, and attacked this woman on the train without even sharing a single word with her. Just stood up she was sat in front of him, minding her own business, and just stood up and stabbed her at least 3 times, one of which was probably in the neck, I think. And yeah, I was kind of watching Megyn Kelly yesterday and she was saying how everybody should watch this. And I thought, should I watch this or shouldn't I watch this? But I did, because I think it is important that we're aware of what's going on. So I sat and watched the whole thing, and it was absolutely shocking to watch, in so much as well how people as well were so tuned out for long minutes while it was happening, while they were aware that somebody had been stabbed and that this girl had crumpled and was on the floor, and there was like nothing was happening. And it was really quite shocking. So I watched that, and then of course yesterday we had the very sad news that Charlie Kirk has been killed as well. He was shot at one of his rallies in Utah, and it was quite shocking as well to witness what people were saying. You know, along certain factions were saying along the lines of, well, he's pro-gun, and he said you'll get some fatalities when we have guns in our system, and you know, that's to be expected. And now look at him, he's being killed by gunfire. And it's like, wow, people, is this where we're at? I know people politically won't gel with people like Charlie Kirk, like Megyn Kelly, like Candace Owens. But I must say that over the last year or so, I've been watching all of them with quite a lot of interest, and I found them very informative, and especially when it's talking about getting back to old-fashioned values and family and faith, and free speech and all of the rest of it. And Charlie Kirk was literally shot and killed exercising his right to free speech, and some of the themes in the Baldoni case, as stupid as it is, comes down to free speech. But I just think I am finding it hard to talk about this case today when you've got things like this going on in the world, and my deepest sympathies go out to the families of Irina Zaruska and Charlie Kirk for what they are going through right now, because it's senseless. It's absolutely senseless. And the Baldoni case is senseless in an entirely different way. But I kind of committed to doing this thing. So just a little roundup, basically. But it's another of those days or those times where really there's a lot of documents flying around and a lot of filings, but there's actually nothing that's really new or different or relevant or that we haven't heard 100 times already. But it's time for an update, really. So I should briefly kind of just look at some of the things. But yeah, just much love to you out there if you have been affected by any of the things you've been hearing in the last few days and seeing for yourself. I mean, like I say, we got this stark footage of Irina and her murder, and we also got, I didn't go and look at go trawling to find the intensive footage of what happened to Charlie Kirk, but I saw the footage from a distance, and that was enough, to be honest. But yeah, I'd found myself really quite liking Charlie Kirk over the last year or so. I found him very compelling to watch, especially when it was talking about education and stuff, and how campuses aren't open-minded. They are, politically leaning and things like that, and about values and the trans issue and all of that, because I've been questioning myself a lot over the last year over, is what I feel and what I believe, is it an okay feeling or a belief to have? So sometimes people like Megyn Kelly, like Candice, like Charlie Kirk, have actually been really helpful to me in my own thought processes as I was working through, am I bigoted? Am I this? Am I that? Am I intolerant? So it was helpful for me to listen to these people and their arguments, and I find it deeply sad that Charlie Kirk has been murdered at 31 years old when he has young children. And it's terrible because other people have said we don't know what he would have been in another year or 5 years or 10 years. This guy, didn't have a fancy formal education. I think he went to community college from what I've just quickly looked into. And I guess that's kind of, like the thing about university, not his perspective on university education, not exactly being the thing, not necessarily being the thing that's going to propel you into having a successful life. I guess I resonate with that because I came out of school at 12 years old with school phobia. So to see people like Charlie, who didn't have the kind of education that most people esteem is the only way to be, I find that incredibly impressive and supportive, I guess, to myself. So I find it incredibly sad that he's been murdered, and that in the meantime we've got this ridiculous woman, Blake Lively, who believes herself a victim to have to deal with. So that is why I'm finding it a little bit hard today to have any interest in this Baldoni and Lively case whatsoever, because people doing this to themselves at this level for sheer ego related purposes is absolutely, beggars belief, as we would say in the United Kingdom. But let's just have a quick run through of what kind of I just need to touch on, basically. See if I can bring it up. I might stop and start a bit today. It all just gets too ridiculous. All right. So I am screen sharing. So just this quickly. So I think it's yet to be decided on the Perez issue over he has to produce some vendors so that Blake can pay for his forensic digital extraction or whatever it is of his information. So Blake is objecting to the fact that Perez wants to hide the names of who his contacts with, even in terms of giving it over to, you know, whatever is forensically, digitally extracted. Perez wants it some kind of affirmation that the names will definitely not be released to Blake unless there's an actual court order to do it or whatever. So he doesn't even want the judge to see the names. I guess what he wants to do is hide the names, provide the information, and the judge decide whether that is covered by journalistic privilege or whatever it may be. But whether the names are actually necessary in order to say whether that is journalistic privilege or not, I'm not legally qualified to say, but Blake Lively is submitting arguments to say that basically they've never heard of a situation where in an ex parte conversation with the judge, where you were handing over privilege logs and such and pleading your case or whatever it is, you would have the names concealed, basically, when you were talking about this kind of situation. So they're objecting to that, which, you know, they object to everything. So we're not really surprised there, are we? The court should reject Mr. Hilton's request to permit him to file a coded privilege log whereby he withholds the identities of his sources from the court. So I don't know. I don't know whether Perez will get away with that, but they just cannot leave Brian Friedman's name out of a document. Blake Lively's team, it's like, out of all the people to pick that he may or may not have communicated with as a source, of course it has to be Brian Friedman's name that's mentioned. For example, whether Mr. Hilton communicated with one of the defendants in the underlying litigation or a defendant's agent, including, for example, Brian Friedman, just off the top of my head, just off the cuff, you know, that any old name out of the hat. Of course it's Brian Friedman's we mentioned. It's and I think that's interesting, isn't it? And again, that thing of, it's mentioned in some of these other documents, the Steve Sarowitz multi-billionaire over and over again. They're really offended. They get really offended really easily by people. And they've taken offense to Brian Friedman from the moment he spoke up, basically, when the CRD was filed, because it's like, what do you mean? That CRD meant that nobody could say anything about me because California 47.1 and blah, 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 civil code, blah, blah, blah. I can say what I like and nobody can say anything back to me. So at that moment, Blake Lively made Brian Friedman a complete and total enemy of herself and something to be targeted. She made the decision as early as that, basically, because whatever advice she'd had was, file this CRD and nobody can say anything about you because it will be retaliation and it will be defamation. And she's taken that and she's lodged it in her heart, and that is what she's sticking to her dying day, basically. So I don't know what will come of that one. I'm just going to whiz through today because, as I say, oh God, I'm not doing that just in case I accidentally shut it down. But what I'm saying is, a lot of this stuff is not worth going through in depth, to be honest, even like from Wayfarer's point of view, because they're all just saying the same kind of thing. So what is this? This is the 30-page thing that Blake put in about her treble damages. So clearly we're not going to run through it all. I'm presuming somebody else is. I haven't really been watching many videos, to be honest, the last few days about this, because I've been prepping for this workshop and stuff. And I just, like I say, I've just found it so ridiculous in the last few days and so pointless. And I know we've had the Ryan Reynolds thing as well, so I'll touch on that a bit. But yeah, so this is just more bluster on the part of Blake Lively about why she should get treble damages. So she wants to use California civil code in a New York federal court. So this court has already recognised the Wayfarer party's pattern of using filings on the docket as an opportunity to litigate this case in the press rather than in court, and to exploit the litigation process to invite public speculation and scandal. And it's not even really funny at this point how hypocritical that is. I mean, we'll touch on the latest attachment in a moment, which has prompted so much press speculation. It's ridiculous again, and more things of Justin Baldoni proved to be a harasser again. It's like there's I think this is why I'm so frustrated and so angry when you've got people just being murdered for going about their own business, and then you've got people like this saying stuff they know to be lies, that they know they're doing themselves, and expecting a court of law to buy it wholesale, basically, isn't it? So let's whiz down. I'm not going to go through it all. So section 40, where are we here? Section 47.1 ensures that individuals who experience SH or retaliation are able to share their experiences with courts, agencies, the press, and others without fear of being sued for doing so. And the wording of this, if that's truly the wording, but it isn't, is it? Because it says ensures. But I don't believe that that piece of civil code intends for your average victim to go and contact the New York Times and do a whole article about it. I would imagine it's more along the lines of, if information gets out, you are allowed to give a comment to the press or set the record straight if there's something said against you or whatever it is. It doesn't say do a preemptive full page spread or whatever it is with an accompanying video, and that's okay. We expect you to do that. We expect you to feel like you have the right to do that. I would imagine this section 47 doesn't expect individuals to go out at the same time we file a CRD and do a massive thing in the New York Times without warning, basically without warning to anybody, because they didn't give them enough time to respond, did they? They didn't want the Wayfarer team's point of view on it all. So section 47.1 is intended to deter frivolous claims that force survivors to defend against a long and expensive retaliatory defamation lawsuit. And again, it's more hypocrisy, isn't it? Because if that's what she was trying to avoid, why did she then make a massive lawsuit in federal court? It's just, if you know what, if you're truly a victim and you're trying to avoid that, why would you go out and do a massive lawsuit if that's what you were trying to avoid? It's cherry picking all the time, cherry picking language. It's so frustrating to me, especially because as I was saying to my workshop guests yesterday, language is a big part of what we do with hypnosis. The language is specifically tailored, whether it be language set in the past or language set in the present, language that is tailored to whether you are more a visual person or an auditory person or a feelings person, using presuppositions and things like that. All of the language is taken to get in the best result for you. So it's kind of really frustrating to me to see people cherry picking language while totally ignoring what they themselves are doing exactly the same thing. I think this is what I've been sitting with the last few days and why I've been resistant to coming on and talking about it. Because it's all more fuel to the fire as well. It's just, do I want to propagate rubbish on the internet? I've been so resistant the last few days. 47.1 is intended to protect victims from the litigation itself, but you've got a victim here who just decided to do litigation anyway, and remedies must be available at the earliest stage. Because this is it all along. Blake Lively wants things now. She wants things to happen now. She wants a decision on this now. The court should act promptly to remedy the substantial harm Ms. Lively has incurred. And I think I'm right in saying that nobody's had treble damages yet under this piece of civil code. So she believes her case is so special, so unique. She believes it is the prototypical suit. So first, original, typical form of something. She thinks she's got the best argument there has been so far, basically, for why she should get of all people, of all victims, why she should get treble damages in this case. And she wants, like as we said, she wants a New York federal court to be the one to decide to give her treble damages under California civil code. So yeah, this in itself tells you a lot about Blake and about Ryan, that they feel they have the right. It's like if you want to talk about what happened the other day. I don't know, the other day at Toronto, if that lip reader accurately lip read Ryan Reynolds and whatever he was saying to Eugene Levy. I don't know if they got it right or wrong. I found it hard myself to see what was going on there. I did think there was a bit of odd body language. I thought you could interpret the body language of Ryan as being dismissive, but without actually hearing it for yourself. I did think Eugene Levy looked a bit like stunned or a bit shook or a bit like he didn't know quite what to do with himself. So it wouldn't surprise me if that had happened. And it certainly wouldn't surprise me if Ryan had said, "Don't tell me how to speak to someone." But the thing is, if he was addressing the bullshit remark at Eugene Levy, and Eugene Levy genuinely did say language, and Ryan Reynolds says, "Don't tell me how to talk to somebody," that again is problematic behavior, because Eugene Levy, if somebody said bullshit to him, has a right to say, "Please don't use that language." Why does he not have the right to say to something to Ryan Reynolds? And so, like, we don't know if all of that is true. You know what I mean? It's one perspective on it. But if it did happen, it's very interesting, because in my little mind, it makes me then think, why does Ryan have a problem with people telling him what he can and can't say? And that would tend to stem from a childhood thing, or feeling like his boundaries were crossed all the time as a child and he couldn't say how anything made him feel or whatever. And now he's this like little Hitler, basically, running around saying, "You can't talk to me like this," and having massive flare-ups at Justin Baldoni in Ryan Reynolds' New York penthouse or whatever it is. I don't think anybody's disputing that Ryan, in his behaviour in that meeting, was OTT. You know, it was witnessed, wasn't it? So this will be interesting if it comes to court, what it does tell us about Ryan. But yeah, if that incident on the red carpet was true, and that's what was said by Ryan Reynolds, and he's so touchy right now that he actually did come down on the 70-odd-year-old man like that, who's like a national treasure, isn't he, basically? Pretty much universally loved, Eugene Levy. It's interesting, but maybe it wasn't real. We don't know. None of us should get so judgmental that we get really narrowed in our focus of what did and didn't happen. We can't just clamp down and just see things as we want to see them. We've got to keep a little bit of an open mind. So yeah, so being the prevailing defendant, again, this sense of being the last person standing, this survivor. As for punitive damages, the record as it currently exists is sufficient for the court to determine the Wayfair parties engaged in oppression, fraud, or malice by bringing and maintaining their claims against Ms. Lively, entitling her to punitive damages. And again, what have we got here? And this is kind of where they miss a trick, Lively's side, is because they continue to denigrate the average person in the street and the average person making content too, because they've got a problem with the fact that you know, after Justin's case was tossed, or the majority of it was tossed, and Brian thanked the internet sleuth community who continued to cover the case and such like that. Lively's side take that as him feeding the media an online frenzy, because they say everybody out there is only talking about this because Brian Friedman is thanking them. It's like, and it's just so insulting, really. Of course he should have thanked the internet sleuth community, because they kept feeding him. Have you seen, you know, just in the form of making the content is what I'm talking about. They kept saying, I hope Brian Friedman sees this. Have they seen this? Have they seen the other, like things like the Ari Emanuel thing, where the, you know, the podcast suddenly didn't happen. If somebody hadn't captured that audio and put it on the internet, we wouldn't have heard Ari Emanuel saying such insulting things about Justin and stuff like this. So it would have been incredibly rude if Brian Friedman had not thanked the internet sleuth community, because they would have missed quite a lot of things if not for the content creators who had all the time to troll through all the bits and pieces and find this stuff. You know, but she's taking that as, you know, he stirred up this frenzy by thanking the stupid. Stupid is the underlying feeling that Blake and Ryan have of the internet sleuth community and the likes of me and everybody else that's doing it. And this is annoying as well, because again, it's like using somebody's language against them and removing all of the context around it. Because they keep harking back to this idea that Wayfarer acknowledged that Blake didn't act with malice because at some point in a conversation, I think it was Justin said, she's one of those people who genuinely believes she's right. Right? Okay, so in Blake's interpretation, she takes that to mean that they don't think that she acted with malice because she thinks she's right. But if you had the whole context around that, of course, it reads entirely different, because what it's saying is she's a delusional person who's one of these people that you can't talk to, that you can't make see reason, because she will only see things one way. But Blake chooses to interpret, cherry pick those words, to only take like a tiny portion of the words to say that, right, they say, I believe I'm right, hence I have not acted with malice in anything I have done. Because they made that one comment that anybody in the world would have made in that situation by saying, God, it's so hard to deal with this person. Can't get anywhere with them because she's one of these people that just genuinely believes she's right about everything, you know, which is an entirely different point of view and does not give you the right to go off then and do malicious behaviors. So this is my problem that I've been dealing with the last few days. So Ms. Lively plainly had a reasonable basis to file a complaint, as she in fact did in multiple ways to multiple people. But she kind of was just spouting off the top of her head to various people. She didn't do anything in an official capacity, rightly or wrongly. So what else? I'm not going to go through all of this. Look, you see again, multi-billionaire over and over. It really bothers Ryan Reynolds that they have multi-billionaire Steve Sarowitz on their side. And I think this is the source of this exhibit, which we'll go over in a minute. So I think what maybe we're assuming at this point is that this exhibit we're going to touch on a minute, which is this new statement that's on the docket, some affidavit or whatever it is, sworn statement that's got the names blanked out, is somehow somebody, I don't know, it's so complicated. I might have to read that first to you and then come back to this, because we're trying to figure out in this affidavit who it is, what production they were working on, and what happened, basically, whether they did have a grievance with Justin Baldoni. But somebody here has overheard Steve Sarowitz allegedly say he was prepared to spend 100 million to ruin the lives of Ms. Lively and her family, and that whole Israel thing and Hamas and this here, I will protect the studio like Israel. You see, read this with me. This is overheard information. I will protect the studio like Israel protected itself from Hamas. There were 39,000 dead bodies. There will be 2 dead bodies when I'm done, minimum. Now, all of that is highlighted in bold. So that's that. So this bit, the following bit, they don't want you to apply to it. Not dead, but you're dead to me. So that kind of dead, but dead to a lot of people. If they ever get me to that point, then I'll make it worth worth their while, because I'm going to spend a lot of money to make sure the studio is protected. But they only really want you to focus on that bit that's in bold that makes it sound like a physical threat. You know, the rest of it isn't worth bolding to Team Lively. They don't really want you to take that on board at all. But basically, this is hearsay because somebody apparently heard that and then communicated it to Blake. But it's very detailed, isn't it? How they've remembered every word. Not dead, but you're dead to me. So that kind of dead, but dead to, it's almost like somebody's recorded it, isn't it? It's interesting that. So is this person, because it's saying another witness, an individual who is working with Wayfarer on an unrelated project, is whether this refers to the exhibit that I'll show you in a minute. We'll come back to that. I'm totally confused. I was like looking at it the other day and I thought, oh, is that? And then like people were saying it could even just be Blake herself, because every time you read it, you could interpret it different, this statement. And some people were trying to say it was Liz Plank, but I can't really see how it would be Liz Plank. Could be wrong. But we'll read it together in a minute and see. Sometimes just in doing this and presenting content for you, I kind of get a different perspective as I'm working through it. But my mind really does not want to deal with this at the moment. So, So let's see what this says. So Ms. Lively testified that she not only felt that the lawsuit and Mr. Freeman's conduct was retaliatory, but that Mr. Sarowitz's dead body's threat on the heels of his pledge to spend 100 million to ruin her life left her concerned for her physical safety and as a mother for that of her family. This is a woman that routinely has bodyguards go with her places and nannies and whoever else. She's never alone anywhere. She's never under threat. She's not Charlie Kirk out on the stage in the middle of Utah saying things that some people would find controversial. This woman does not live her life under threat of any kind. And it's quite disgusting, really, that she alludes to the fact that she is in any way. So this person also had concerns with Mr. Baldoni, who they found to be verbally abusive, which resulted in him not being allowed on the set of the other project or involved in its marketing or publicity. So Justin Baldoni, if he even has been verbally abusive, well, it depends what kind of verbally abusive. But as many people are saying, this affidavit, unless it's alluding to the fact of absolutely the same conduct as what Blake is suing him for, then it's not admissible in this court. You can't just say, I'll cherry pick this information and say, oh, look, he's got a bad character, this guy, because he did this in this entirely different circumstance. You can't do that in a lawsuit. And that is why her hypocrisy over this, because it's like she would not allow them to do that for sure, to cherry pick that elsewhere Blake Lively was an absolute bitch on this set. And I've got this affidavit about, I mean, look at Brian's affidavit where he had like a conversation with somebody that says Blake Lively is an extortionist. That affidavit was struck off the docket. It wasn't allowed on there because in a different context, and it wasn't even an entirely unrelated context, Brian's affidavit, you know, it was tied to this case. But this one is saying, no, on this set, he was like this. And that means that he has bad character. And it also proves that he did this to me. You cannot say that. You can't have it. So, yeah. So what else we got? So, you know, it's this business of, you know, not only did they sue Ms. Lively, they also roped in her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and her publicist, Leslie Sloan, Miss Sloan's company, as if these people weren't directly involved, as if it were like, just how dare they? It's like they were just off minding their business and doing their own thing, you know. Next thing they're in this lawsuit that they never asked to be in, you know, never did a thing in their lives. It's that kind of thing that is so insane, really. So what else? For some reason, sometimes my highlighting thing stops working and it makes me do it like that instead of in the middle of doing something. It's so frustrating. So yeah, as other people are saying right now, the Livelies have pivoted again, haven't they? And it was quite interesting the other day to see not actually Gold and finally get really frustrated, I think, with this case. And I think it was down to this affidavit, this Exhibit A, because she was saying, like, you just can't do this type of thing. And it's like, and that makes me really think that they have nothing in terms of the case, because it's quite a desperate move. And it was certainly a PR move, because it absolutely had the impact of generating headlines when it came out. But yeah, the current target is the fact of creating the lawsuit. That is now the subject that's kind of replacing the smear campaign temporarily, and the they want people to be this focused on this idea of these people go out and create websites as part of their tactic. This is kind of the new avenue that they're going down. But literally all it was, wasn't it, was that his complaint and his Exhibit A, this timeline of relevant, restyled as a timeline of relevant event. But it's not like it wasn't anything that wasn't publicly available, or it was just what it was, wasn't it? It was giving the context around the text messages and stuff like that. So I don't know. And what's interesting, isn't it, now, is this idea of she's complained for so long that she didn't have enough information, and she should have this and she should have that, and now she's got 80,000 pages of documents that she's complaining about because she hasn't got time to deal with. And again, I found that, like, she's complaining about that and saying, like, that because there's depositions to be held and things like that. And I think, yeah, and you dumped your, what was it, second amended complaint the night before your deposition. But that doesn't compute, does it? It's a totally different thing, because that's somebody else. And Blake can do whatever she wants. You know, her timings are her timings. Your timings have to be her timings, is what it is, really. But it so far, it's looking like a lot of this 80,000 pages was just trying literally to protect her from having to troll through all of this stuff that's unnecessary. I mean, some of the things Case and Coslow are having to produce now, they're being compelled to. Some of it is like conversations between Katie Case, isn't it, and her dad about the dog and stuff like that. It's like, oh dear. This is why I'm finding it hard to troll through it, I think, really. So let's see what else. I don't really want to put you through reading it anymore, really. So she's making a little argument about some of the problems that she raised with Baldoni's case and how they kept refusing to back off and such, and how she pointed out that they weren't, you know, everybody's names were lumped together, but they had no extortionate threats or demands as to, they couldn't claim that she'd made any of those to Sarowitz, Nathan, Abel, or the LLC. There was nothing that they could tie extortion to via them. Unlike the interference employed. Yeah. I don't think there's anything more worth saying there, really, that's that interesting. She's just trying to point out the flaws that were in their original case and why they shouldn't have retaliated, and why they were given multiple avenues to withdraw their case. And it was pointed out time and again that they didn't have a good case, and they still went on with it. And the only reason they still went on with it was to retaliate against her. That's... So this is where it's referring to the fact the judge ruled, and he made a point of saying he didn't take on board 47.1 in ruling, or the amicus briefs, or anything that she did at that time, but pointed out she was free to renew her motion for attorney's fees, treble damages, and that. But he didn't say that he would definitely give them to her. It's an entirely different argument. In granting the parallel motions to dismiss, the court did, however, rule that the Wayfarer parties failed to plead actual malice on the part of Mr. Reynolds, Ms. Sloan, and the New York Times, finding that the Wayfarer parties failed to allege facts that would have caused the defendants to doubt Ms. Lively's account. So it's all this business of, why would these people do what, you know, they believe Blake, they believe that she's a truthful person. The New York Times, believed she was so truthful that they didn't have to wait to see what the Wayfarer parties said. That's perfectly normal, apparently. Yeah, so where are we? The CRD complaint and article contain numerous messages and documents strongly suggesting the Wayfarer parties did spread negative stories about Lively, but that's based on the cherry-picked texts, isn't it? And it's again, it's this language business. It's like, and this is my frustration with the case, is that often, and I've said it numerous times now, we'll get like a statement or a piece of a sentence or whatever, and it could be entirely interpreted two different ways, but it always seems to go in Lively's favour of the interpretation. So it's literally saying, so some messages relied on by the Wayfarer parties for the claim that they were not engaging in negative messaging regarding Lively and Reynolds can in fact be read to imply the opposite, as anything in life can. A message from Baldoni to Nathan about protecting myself asks, do we say Blake and Ryan hire Harvey Weinstein's publicist, to which Nathan responds, that's a conversation I'm going to have with Jen and Jamie today. This implies that Baldoni and Nathan at least considered spreading a negative story regarding Lively's choice of Sloane as their publicist. Where is the crime there? That they were considering having a conversation. That is not a crime. In addition, the Wayfarer parties emphasised text between tag team members stating, we didn't tell Jed to go after the idea that her promo was inappropriate. That happened organically. But these texts can be read to imply that Tag did tell Wallace to go after Lively on other issues. It's just absolute nonsense. It could have been the truth, but it's more likely not to have been the truth. It's just like, who's fitting the narrative here? You know, she's forever accusing them of the narrative to suit themselves, but it's an entirely different argument for herself. If Wallace never spread anything negative about Lively, it is unclear why tag team members would feel the need to note that Wallace did not spread this particular piece of negative publicity about Lively. So, I don't know, it's like looking for confirmation bias, isn't it? Only picking and choosing what you want to see and inferring whatever you want to infer from the rest of it. I mean, this is highly insulting. I think just reducing Brian Friedman to a mouthpiece. Even more unthinkable, they accused Blake of devastating the entirety of the domestic violence community by lodging the allegations. Well, I think many of them, you know, honest to God, I'm just thinking of the women that I spent time with yesterday, and although nothing personal was shared, you could just tell so much from, you know, when I saw how people were sitting, and how, you just can tell when somebody has been a victim of something and when somebody hasn't. And I don't believe Blake Lively. She's got hurt feelings. She's butthurt, but she's not a victim. All the same things. Moaning about the deposition going on again, but it was a purely public relations matter. And here on the footnote again, and as if on cue and true to plan, the media and the internet sleuth community immediately began speculating that the deposition testimony must not have gone well for Ms. Lively if her attorneys sought to keep the transcript sealed. And again, I just get the underlying feeling that she thinks all of us plebs, all of us know nothings, all of us who are so easily influenced, you know, that are incapable of making up our own minds, as if on cue, the internet sleuth community, who have no mind of their own, immediately began speculating, blah, blah, blah. Moving down. So again, this idea that because they said that one random comment he made about she genuinely believes she's right, that leads to her always being without malice in Blake Lively's eyes. The actual malice standard is focused on the subjective attitude of the publisher and therefore requires the plaintiff to allege that the defamatory statement was made with knowledge that it was false or with reckless disregard of whether it was false or not. So that's where their entire thing there says Justin shouldn't have sued her because he literally said she genuinely believes she's right. That doesn't mean that he doesn't believe she's malicious. It's just so annoying, the abuse of language and truth, really. Genuinely believe she's right and that all of this is unjust. So, as described above, none of these theories contain allegations that Ms. Lively fabricated the SH allegations or insinuations in the protections for return to work production. She's reliant on that return for work production, the 17-point document, because they signed it, because they agreed to it or whatever, because they had no choice at that point if they wanted to finish filming the movie. That means that they acknowledged that she was SH'd on that set. They admitted it, they had culpability. It's not to do with her blackmailing or extorting them. No, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to keep going. And this language here, I feel like that's to get back at Brian over that statement of if Ms. Lively wants to look for the truth or whatever it is, she need only look in the mirror. The court need look no further than its own docket if it wants evidence of the Wayfarer parties admitting much of the misconduct that occurred on set. So Section 47.1's damages provision authorises treble damages for the economic, emotional and psychological harm survivors suffer when defending themselves in retaliatory suits brought by their abusers. The full measure of this harm will be established during an expert discovery in this case, but she wants prompt evidentiary hearing. She wants it now, pretty much immediately. So she believes she's suffered oppression, despicable conduct that subjects a person to cruel and unjust hardship in conscious disregard of that person's rights. Fraud is an intentional misrepresentation, deceit or concealment of material fact intended to cause injury. Malice is either conduct that is intended to cause injury or despicable conduct carried out with a willful and conscious disregard of the rights or safeties of others. I think she is malicious. So the punitive damages should reflect the magnitude of the defendant's violation of such policy. Just bear with me a second. I'm just going to pause it and just see if there's anything further worth sharing. I mean, one of the things she refers to there is the court awarded the plaintiff punitive damages, finding that the defendant had acted in conscious disregard of plaintiff's rights by refusing to withdraw and then releasing subsequent issues of the magazine containing plaintiff's photograph. This is a case where a model and actress, a pornographic magazine had published sexually explicit photographs of her without her consent. So the court awarded plaintiff punitive damages because they continued to do so, even after receiving notice that the photographs were unauthorized. So she thinks that she's comparative to some of these people. And that's almost like revenge porn in a way, isn't it? That it's comparing it to, retaliating by releasing naked pictures of somebody. Somehow she thinks her case is similar to this. I think that's as far as I want to go with this because it's just so much nonsense. though her counsel has already presented to the court the extensive efforts by Mr. Friedman to assail Ms. Lively in the press, even after Ms. Lively amended her complaint to add claims related to Friedman's defamatory statements. And she bangs on about the amicus curiae briefs and the DAVA again and all of that. And it's really, I object to speaking to much of this at this point because it's just regurgitating her narrative, really. So, right, we've done with that. So this is the statement. So this is this mysterious exhibit that she dumped with this request for treble damages and the rest of it. So declaration of whoever. I, pursuant to blah, 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 hereby declare as follows. I am over 18 years of age, of sound mind, and otherwise competent to make this declaration. Let me just blow it up. The evidence set out in the foregoing declaration is based on my personal knowledge. So all blanked out there. Wayfarer Studios, LLC. Justin Baldoni, a founder of Wayfarer. I had repeated negative interactions with Mr. Baldoni and his associates, including verbal abuse by Mr. Baldoni, whatever that is. Mr. Baldoni must have requested Mr. Baldoni not be permitted on set during the majority of production as a result of those experiences. So this is interesting because it's like, well, who is it? If this is a Wayfarer production and Justin is a founder of Wayfarer, who is this person that has significant power that can say Justin can't be on a set that's possibly his own, or certainly which his studios, it belongs to his studios? It's like, where's the employment complaint connected to this if it's that bad? Where's the HR complaint connected to this? So blah, blah, all blanked out. I requested that he not be involved in whatever that is, marketing or public relations efforts. So blanked out. I was contacted by the assistant to Steve Sarowitz, co-founder and co-chairman of Wayfarer, to schedule a time for me and Mr. Sarowitz to speak. Mr. Sarowitz's assistant did not identify a topic for the meeting. Long patch of blanked out. A true and correct copy of, produced in discovery as BL, so that's a piece of Blake's discovery, is being submitted with this declaration as Exhibit 1. So it's all a bit mysterious. And I know Kirsty initially said this could be Blake herself. And when I first read it, I thought, yeah, it's like, because it's hard to get a grip of it, because you think, well, what set are we talking about? And again, and like I said, well, it sounds like whoever it is has the power to get Justin Baldoni off his own set. And that it immediately makes it sound like, well, there's not very many people, one maybe, that had that kind of power to do that. So then, of course, people are thinking, well, is it Jenny Slate? Is it this? Is it that? Is the other? But who is it that can get him bounced off his own marketing and public relations efforts? So, you know, and like I said, people were saying Liz Plank, but Liz Plank was involved on the podcast with him. And what kind of marketing and promotions would have been going on, or public relations efforts? I can't see it myself. So who is it, basically? And we still don't really know, but does it even have the right to be there on this docket when it's not talking about the exact same content? And obviously we don't know what's actually being said. Was it sexual language? Was it not sexual language? Oh, it's absolutely... Oh, I'm getting my windows cleaned. I thought it was absolutely hurling it down with rain. It's the window cleaner. Oh, hang on. I'll have to stop for a minute. I'll have Etienne going mad. 2 seconds. Oh, that made a very cross window cleaner. I don't know. I can't do this thing professionally. Let's go back to sharing. Where are we? That one. So yeah, so that's the mysterious declaration, which until we know more about, we can't really say anything, but it just does feel a bit desperate. What is this now? Oh, so that was just when they were asking for an extension of time because at Wayfarer's side of things, because they were having trouble producing signal communications and things like that. So they asked for a few more days, but I think the deadline had already passed, I think, at that point, and they've not been allowed any extra time. So I don't know how that works when they've already gone over time. And it's like you could argue the toss on this one, basically. Should they have been prepared that they'd have to do this, and should they have had all the ducks in a row and already had the information? Maybe you could argue, but it's swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Should they have been prepared? There's an argument to say maybe is it reasonable to ask for a little bit of extra time, given that there was difficulties involved, such as having to hand over the phones and such as that, and be without the phones, and find signal messages if they had already been deleted, if they've been deleted as they have been read or whatever. I don't know quite how signal works. So it's neither here nor there, really. But it was just more ammunition for Lively's side, really, to just get across that narrative that they're trying to conceal things or whatever it is. So I guess then we do have we get slightly annoyed with Lina Friedman and Wayfarer's attorneys when it comes to that, because it's like, just don't give these people ammunition, isn't it? Just don't stall. It's like, just be on it and just have that information. I think that's maybe where you could argue that maybe Jed Wallace's attorneys are a bit more with it, in a sense of they had the ducks in a row, they got the information out there early, gave her a chance to say this isn't good enough and stuff, and then came back fast with their arguments and stuff, whereas Lina Friedman and this side of things and the signal messages and such, and kind of not giving Lively side adequate time to know that they weren't going to produce them on time as well. And they just can't really afford to give, I guess from a public relations sense, if you like, they can't afford to give Lively any kind of ammunition like this that looks like they're stalling or trying to fudge something or whatever it is. It's just like, just don't give them that ammunition, isn't it, really? So this is just more bitching and moaning from Blake's side, basically, that they didn't do it and now they want an extension, and they didn't tell us, and it just gives them more ammunition to just bitch and moan and whine. And it's just like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't give them any ammunition. So all of this is kind of why I've been like stalling on doing a recording these last few days, because I think it's all just bitching and moaning. It's all just bitching and moaning and wailing. And then you've got real people out in the world being victimized and hurt and shot dead and stabbed. And it's just like, you just want to cry. I had a little cry for Charlie Kirk last night. I've only really become aware of him in the last year, but I just think it's so flaming sad and pointless. And then you've got pointless shit like this going on, and people costing themselves millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that could be going to good causes. It's just absolute nonsense. So now the final thing, the last thing I'll touch on today is just as a combined unit, both sides are asking for changes to the deadlines and such. So October 10th deadline to exchange opening expert reports, October 24th deadline to exchange expert rebuttal reports, November 14th deadline to complete depositions of experts. All unnecessary nonsense, isn't it, really, when you compare it against what's really going on in the world right now and the challenges that we are all facing, and the threats on a daily basis that we encounter, and the real abuse and the rest of it. And you've got Blake Lively that can stand up at the Times 100 thing and in a beautiful guest gown and her full body makeup and her emeralds in her ears or whatever it is, and have the nerve to talk about being a survivor. Basically, it's a little bit sickening, just a little bit. So that's it, basically. That's as much as kind of I want to go into today. I've had to push myself through that. And I don't even, at this point, I think that's the frustration is, at this point, I don't even really know if it's of interest to you. I just think, I don't know if you've heard, like, because I feel like, because I'm a bit up to my limit with it, it's like, is anybody out there even interested in this? Should we even really be talking? It's really only sheer frustration that's keeping people talking, I think. It's like the frustration at this point is that I think most people generally feel like Justin and Jamie and Steve Starowitz to some extent, although I think Steve Starowitz will be quite a keen businessman. I suspect you don't mess with him. I don't think he'll take a lot of crap, Steve Starowitz. I think you possibly get the sense that Jamie and Justin were a little bit careful. They didn't just expect Steve Starowitz to fall in line with anything they did or said, and like as if they had some kind of free reign with the funds or anything like that. I don't think you got a sense of that. I think Steve Starowitz is probably like a keen businessman. But I think you get the sense that they weren't, the sense has always been, I think, that they didn't want to harm Blake Lively, but that they were forced into this position of defending themselves. But who's to say what the PR got up to on the behalf? To some extent, I think most of us at this point feel that these PR people, of any PR people to do with anybody, are all capable of doing the kind of things that are mooted, coming up with fake websites, planting, seeding stories and all the rest of it. But that wasn't what was asked of them here. So all of these conversations that could have, should we have a discussion, what about what so-and-so did, or whatever it is, doesn't really matter if Justin and Jamie and Steve Starowitz did not ask these people to do that on their behalf. It doesn't matter that they can do it for other people, just like all the other PR companies in the world and the, Nick Shapiro's and that of this world. They've, and I think that's why the majority of us are still Team Baldoni and consider Team Baldoni Team the Truth, because I think at the heart of it, we still think that the key players in it were genuine in nature, if you want to say it like that. And then you've got Blake Lively on the other side of things, who many people feel is a completely unsympathetic figure and has been the architect of her own destruction and refuses to see it. And literally the most true statement about Blake Lively that Justin Baldoni has ever made is that statement of, she genuinely believes she's right. She genuinely believes that this is unjust and it shouldn't have happened to her. She genuinely cannot see any of her own actions, anything that she's at fault for. That is the truest thing Justin Baldoni's ever said in a way, and it's being held over his head as grounds to say, well, that gave her the right to do practically anything and for it not to be called actual malice. And it's really sad, I think, everything that's happening here in this case, when you have real people that were either trying to make a new life for themselves, coming all the way from the Ukraine to live in America, thinking that she'd be safe there and all the rest of it, just gets on a train, sits in front of somebody, just scrolling on a phone, and the guy behind her gets up and just stabs her and leaves her there to die. And it takes long minutes for anybody to realise how serious it is, or to get involved, or to even, pull the cord or whatever you do these days on the train. And then you've got Charlie Kirk, who's trying to speak to the youth of America and, encourage them that it doesn't have, like a successful life does not have to include college, that question what's going on in your colleges. Are you being fed a narrative and all the rest of it? And, speaking his truth about religion and God and guns and all of the rest of it, like he has the right to say it, that just gets shot and killed. For what? And then you've got this numpty, Blake Lively, who thinks the world revolves around her. And as a victim, that's why it's been hard today. And I'm sure a lot of you out there have had a gutful of it at this point too, but I thought it was time for a catch up, and I thought if I leave it much longer, I will never want to get back to it. So, but yeah, it's that thing of a lot is happening and a lot is being said and nothing's happening at the same time, really. We're literally waiting for Discovery to be over and to see whether Baldoni and that do the whole summary judgment argument, basically, because has she got a case at this point? It sounds all good in theory when you're reading these long briefs and all the rest of it, but does it actually add up to a legal case? That's what we're waiting on. Anyway, thank you for watching and staying with me through the ramblings and the window cleaning and all the rest of it. Please do hit that like and subscribe and share if you can, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.
Drop a like and subscribe, and please check out the description box. There's often free resources there.